Oh, wow. Oh, man. Are we ever going to talk about one amazing album today on the Clark the Shark Show, 1-800-449-8255? What a bizarre thing this is. Coming to you from the golden EIB Sharkraphone, Bad Religion, Into the Unknown. Oh, man. Now, when I bought this album way back in the early 80s, it was weird because people were like making fun of me for liking this. And I remember I didn't like it. I loved it. And I couldn't stop playing it because I was like, it's almost like punk goes Rush or like punk goes really lame, like cheesy Supertramp or something. I mean, it was admittedly terrible, but Clark the Shark's into just all this lame shit. Rush, Styx, yes. And this went right with that, people, at 1-800-449-8255. And I fell in love with this band, not because of that first album so much. Of course, I loved it, but after a while, punk rock gets like generic or something. I mean, you just get sick of hearing it. It just sounds repetitious. I mean, I love punk. I'm from Redondo Beach, Torrance, the South Bay. I'm obligated to be a punker. But this album here, even more than, Des Cadena, DC3 from SST Records, which came out much later after this. And that album was definitely trying to keep up with this album. And I remember at South High, senior year, the kid named Alan Mulch in class and some other punkers, Jim Moody and other kids, were like, Clark the Shark, Bad Religion's got guys in the band with long hair, just like Black Flag. And I was like, yeah, dude, I know. And they're like, they got cheesy songs like Rush. And I was like, yeah, duh, bro. I got the album. And we all thought, Bad Religion was going to go this direction forever. But sadly, they never did another album like this. And they never did another album this good. This album is fucking great. I don't mean awesome, great. I mean, it's really in detail. It's a tremendous album. And I still have this vinyl to this very day in my record collection. And do I like DC3 with Des Cadena more than this? Maybe. I don't know. They're neck and neck for lame, cheesy punk rock that tries to go prog like Yes or Rush or something. It's a tough competition there. And there's other bands too that were doing it. The 3 O'Clock is kind of like that. Not quite. And others. And many of these sounds found their way onto old KNAC before it went metal in Los Angeles, my favorite radio station that just played all this weird avant-garde underground shit that was just cheesy, man, just really lame, and I fucking loved it. And I love this album to this very day, and so will you. If you crank up this album, if you can find it on CD or the vinyl, it would be a miracle if you can find this album. But a lot of people have got it. And a lot of people around the South Bay, Torrance, Redondo, Hermosa, Gardena, San Pedro, they're afraid to admit it, but this is everybody's favorite Bad Religion album by far. And it's not even close, people. If you talk to someone into punk, someone into underground, 80s, they'll look at you with a grin and a smile and go, Sharky, I fucking love that album. At 1-800-449-8255. This almost reminds me of a band called the Reverse Engineers from Florida. who still exists today. I bought their album way back in 2004. It had like a picture of Sputnik on the cover. It's this really nerdy prog. Almost sounds like Rush meets The Police meets, I don't know, man, like lame The Cars or something. I mean, it's awful and I fucking love it. If you can find that album, both albums, all the albums by the Reverse Engineers, man, I recommend you buy all of them. They're really interesting. And if you can find DC3, Des Cadina's album, on SST Records, on CD, I'm sure you can find it. You can even order it. And it's fucking killer. But this album here by Bad Religion just takes the fucking cake. Prize number one, baby. First place. It's this album, Into the Unknown. Early 80s. And right in the middle of the punk rock times. Why they did this, and I remember it's almost like they were speaking just to me, Clark the Shark, like, you know, Graffin and Gurwitz. They were like, dude, Shark, we know you're lame, bro, and you love Rush, and you just love shitty albums. Here you go, dude. This is for you. And it's like they recorded this album just for me. And this album is so amazing, you guys. On a scale of 1 to 10, Bad Religion, Into the Unknown, gets a 95. This album's incredible. It's really lame. It's fucking awful. But if you like shitty prog from the 70s, if you like Rush 2112, and Yes, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and just all these lame bands, like I do, I fucking love them. But you will find no other album you love more than Bad Religion, Into the Unknown. And it is the only album like this that they do. They've got other songs in their collection, all over the Bad Religion collection of albums. They revisit these concepts here and there, but they never quite nail it ever again like Into the Unknown. Their second album, people, just their second album. And it's so amazing. And man, fuck, dude. DC3, eat your heart out. Des Cadena, dude, you got nothing on. It's so clever, too. It's like, it's only over when you give up, like Sharky with GE at 1-800-449-8255. But sadly, it was over for me with Bad Religion, with this album. I mean, I love punk. I love all their other albums, just like I love, you know, Black Flag and Social Distortion and the Circle Jerks and the Vandals. And come on, man, I'm from Redondo. I have to like it. But those albums, I mean, punk rock is just generic, you guys. It's just boring. It's the same old shit. It doesn't variate from its norm very much. I mean, you go to a show, everyone's slamming and moshing, and, you know, it's just typical, predictable, same old shit. You know, except for Black Flag, you know, Greg Ginn. All those albums are interesting to me because of the way Greg plays guitar. It's so explosive, the way his leads come out of the rhythms. I mean, it's interesting. And Bad Religion does that too on their punk albums. But on this album, man, you are greeted by just the amazing song, It's Only Over When. And then, of course, this album just gets incredible after that. All these songs, I just want you to play this album, crank it up loud. Time and Disregard is sort of like Rush 2112 of Bad Religion. I mean, part 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like a trilogy, quadrilogy. I love Time and Disregard. Side 2 with the Dichotomy, even better. Million Days, of course, you all know that song. And Losing Generation. Just amazing. It's almost like this isn't prog. It's got a lot of keyboards, of course. It's good music. It's really interesting, dreamy bedroom psychedelic rock, and it really reminds me of the Reverse Engineers in DC3, but it's better because Mr. Brett, God bless him, and Graffin, um, they really made something here. And of course, the other guys in the band quit, or maybe they just backed off because they're like, let them get it out of their system. They these guys are into Rush and they're into Steve Howe and they're into, The Who, Quadrophenia, and they're into all that shit from the 70s, man. But I fucking love it. And I love this album, you guys. It's only over when, man, it just goes from there and just, you give up. You're just going to give up when you listen to this album because you're going to be like, why wasn't I born back in 1965 with Clark the Shark and buy this album at 1-800-449-8255? And many people sent this album back and they hated it. But then later, of course, you talk to them and they're all grown up at 40 and 50 and they're like, dude, I fucking love this album. It's everyone's favorite album, not just Bad Religion, but in the punk scene and the underground scene of KNAC, underground radio, 1980s, way back in time when I was just 17, 18, 19, 1984, listening to KNAC downstairs in Redondo Beach, Torrance at 251 Paseo de Gracia. And when they play some Bad Religion, man, Into the Unknown, I don't want to go back to the known, baby. I want to stay in the unknown at the Clark the Shark Show, 1-800-449-8255, from the golden EIB Sharkerphone, the Wolfman Jack on crack. That's right, Clark the Shark, telling you about one of the greatest albums ever recorded. It's horrible. This album is terrible. It's worse than Rush. This album fucking sucks, but I love it. I can't stop playing it. Is it a guilty pleasure? Yes and no. I play it because I like it. And people laugh in the South Bay. You go around, you talk to people who are into Pennywise or whatever, Black Flag, and they're like, yeah, that album, man, it's whatever. They're like, and then they wink at you and they're like, dude, it's so fucking killer. It's so awesome. It's better than anything Des Cadena could do with Black Flag or DC3. I mean, I love spacey, trippy, crazy shit. And I love the fact that Bad Religion just had these long-haired guys, and Henry Rollins had long hair. And there were a lot of punkers back in the early 80s kind of trying to break out of punk and do something else. I think a lot of them wanted to go metal, but they just couldn't quite do it. So they ended up going kind of psychedelic, like Clark the Shark at 1-800-449-8255 and the Greenhouse Effect. I got out of this and got with Phil Keegan, and we just started making amazing songs like Precarious and Number One and all that shit. But it was truly in honor of Bad Religion and albums like Into the Unknown. Does this album mean a lot to my youth? Long ago? Yes, it does, you guys. 1-800-449-8255, the fabulous Clark the Shark Show, telling you about an album that the guys in Bad Religion today say they hate, but they don't. They love this album. Mr. Brett loves it. And lots of punkers, and Henry Rollins probably loves it. Des Cadena and Greg Ginn love it. It's just so weird. It's such an oddball anomaly. Bad Religion, baby. What an album. What an amazing, amazing album. Early 80s. Only their second album, you guys. And at South High, the other punkers were like, dude, that is so lame. That album sucks. And some of them, even them, were like, but I fucking love it, dude. And a lot of people started dropping acid and eating mushrooms and shit and smoking a lot of weed because of this album, or just getting drunk because of the dreamy bedroom psychedelic weirdness that was and still is Bad Religion. They've got other songs that are psychedelic and weird. And I thank them. I thank Mr. Brett and Graffin. Man, Greg Graffin, these guys had vision to do this album. And I praise God above for this album because I love it. And it really meant a lot to me to hear this album and fucking just want to be in a band. More for this album than How Could Hell Be Any Worse. Way more. I love this album, you guys. Clark the Shark at 1-800-449-8255. And if you can find it, buy it. It's with their boxed set. And forget that, man. Just try to buy this fucking album if you can find it. I'm sure you can. At 1-800-449-8255 on the fabulous Clark the Shark Show, where you just got the only review you will ever need of the amazing, dreamy, atmospheric ambiance of the psychedelic Bad Religion album, Into the Unknown. And when you listen to this album, you are really going into the unknown, because this is not punk. This is not new wave. This is trippy psychedelia with keyboards galore, synthesizers. And it's not really a parody. These guys were being seriously lame with acoustic guitars and just all this weird shit. And I appreciated it, man. I really did. Clark the Shark, 1-800-449-8255. Buy this album, you guys, and support this album. Sure, go ahead and buy all their punk rock shit too, and support punk rock, but above all, support Into the Unknown, Bad Religion. One of the worst albums ever recorded, but I fucking love it. 1-800-449-8255. Clark the Shark, the Wolfman Jack on crack, and you just got the word, baby, from one of my favorite albums. And I'm out of here. Peace.